Hello everyone and welcome to Callsign Charlie Models. Time for another inbox review, and today we have another Trumpeter kit, the 1/32 scale F-8J Crusader. Again, this is called the Last Gunfighter. That's some of the little history I know about this kit. I don't know a lot about it, but when I start building it, I am going to dive into the history of this aircraft. I do know that the length of this kit is 524.6 millimeters with a wingspan of 344.6 millimeters and a parts count of over 350 pieces. So parts count should not be that big compared to some other kits that have over 1,000 pieces. This one should be relatively small on the parts count. Then we're moving across to the sides. We have our box art, right, or the two schemes that we have available. So we have the bicentennial F8 from VF 194, the USS Oriskany 1976, and then we have another one from the USS Hancock VF 24 of 1974 right here. Again, some nice color schemes to go, and we also do have some photo etch parts right in there. This box it's wide and long, but it's pretty narrow on the kit. So again, some photo etch frets right there. Then on the other side, we just have a brief history about the F8 right here, and then we have some pictures of the built model right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this box opened up. Let's see how packed it is with plastic. Pretty decently packed, but again, this is a really narrow box. It's only a couple inches tall, so not too many parts for a 1/32 scale. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all this plastic out of the box and set up, and then we can start going through the instructions, the decals, and then we'll start going through the plastic. So give me 1 second to get set up. Alright, so we're starting off with the instructions, and typical Trumpeter format, we have the read before assembly and the legend on the front page. Excuse me. And then we open it up, and let me get the color scheme out of the way. We have our sprue callouts here. Again, the sprue numbers are not legible on this callout, so you won't really be able to use this as a help for looking for an actual part number right here. And then it moves on to the other page with more sprue callout and our photo etch fret and decal sheet right here. Also, it has a list of unused parts going through here. All of the G sprue, it looks like, or the majority of the G sprue, is not used in this kit. Alright, so starting off, we're working on our ejection seat and our cockpit, getting all of that done, and it does have sidewalls to the cockpit, so that will help hide some of the fuselage. It won't have that blank look when you look inside the cockpit. Then after that, we're working on our gun bays, getting all that done, and then after that, we're working on our main landing gear well right there, getting all that attached into the fuselage and moving right along. Then on our next page, we have our speed brake area, our other landing gear well, and then our other gun bay as well. And then we're starting off with the engine. It looks like it's going to be a fully detailed engine inside and out. You can see all of the compression blades going through there. And then moving on to our exhaust area right there, or intake, the front end of our engine right there. After that's done, we're working on our intake. We do have a two-piece intake that also includes the sealing for our nose landing gear well, and then we're also attaching the left and right, rear and forward bulkheads to our main landing gear well, and then we also have a couple other pieces to add on to that as well. Then we're working on our main landing gear with our wheels. Looks like they are in two halves, so we'll have to take a look at the detail on that. And then after that, we're adding some more detail to the underside with our air brake cabin, and then getting the cockpit intakes and engine all attached and then sandwiched in between of the two fuselage halves. Then moving right along, we're adding in our refueling probe, our nose, a radar dish or something right there, and then we're adding in our pylons for our sidewinders right there, or rockets. You can have both sides on that. Okay, up next we have our instrument combing and our instrument panel right there, along with the hatches for our gun bays in the open or closed position right there, and also our ram air turbine right there. After that's all done, we are adding in our main landing gear, our nose landing gear as well, and then a couple other pieces that go up on this piece. I think that's for maybe the air brake or one of the air brakes. And then we're adding in a couple more belly pieces right there, and then our main landing gear doors and some ventral strakes or ventral fins right along here, again with more landing gear doors going on there as well. After that's all done, we're adding in our speed brake and then our nose landing gear doors and then an antenna right there, and then after that we're adding in our front canopy and our main canopy. Then moving on to our wings, getting our wings all assembled with our flaps and our wing fold assembly right there, and then we are working on the outer wing tips right here, getting that all done, and then we are attaching those. You have the option of having them extended or folded for this kit, and we have a few other hoses to attach right here to our wing fold area as well. After that's all done, we're attaching the wings to the fuselage, getting that all done. We have a couple pieces to put in. You do have an option between folded and open, and then you also have a actuator for the wing right there. After that, we have a couple of lumps and bumps to put onto the tail, and also our elevators / horizontal stabilizers. Then moving on, we have our loadout right here, so some air to ground ordnance to be added if you'd like. And then we have pylons going onto the wings as well with that air to ground ordnance. For me, I will be doing it solely as a fighter aircraft with no air to ground ordnance on that. Up next, we have our color callouts right here. Nice large paper with our color schemes and decal placements right here. So there's no, it's very easy to see where everything goes on here. Again, very nice. I'm really liking the VF-24 scheme right here with the red and black nose on there, as you can see. Then on the flip side, we have the VF-194 USS Oriskany 1976, the bicentennial aircraft. Again, nice color scheme on that. I am kind of siding with the other one because the nose is colorful. We'll have to see. Is there decals for the nose, or is that painted on? Looks like the decal is a decal. So you paint the nose red, and then you have a black decal that goes over it for the swirl on that. So that's going to be helpful on getting that correct. Alright, up next we have our Photo-etch. We have some ammo belt stuff right here, our seat belts, some rear view mirrors, then all of our fans for the compression blades for the engine right here, and then more seat belts. Again, typical Trumpeter thickness for the Photo-etch, pretty thick on that. So luckily there's not much to be bent on this Photo-etch fret. And after that, we have a box for our clear parts. Getting this opened up, let's take a look. It's nice and protected. Alright, so looking at our clear parts, they do look nice and clear. If I don't drop it. Alright, nice and clear. They do have that extra area, so that way when you attach it to the fuselage and you have, if you need to take care of a seam line, it's not right up against the glass, so you do have a little bit of a leeway on that. I would recommend doing a polish to this just to make it look a little bit better, but the clear parts do look pretty good for that. And then on the main canopy, again, pretty nice on the clear work. No seam down the middle, so that's a nice touch. Don't have to worry about sanding that out. And just add a nice little polish to that. That's going to look really nice when it's all done. Alright, so up next we have our decals. And decals do look fairly nice. Typical Trumpeter decals. Sometimes they go down great, sometimes they fight you. But there shouldn't be much of an issue with this. You do have the black for your nose cone on the VF24, and again, nice color registry right here. Getting that color match might be a little bit of a nightmare, trying to see how close we can get it to that. But moving on to the rest of the decals, everything else does look nice. All the spelling for the no pushes and no steps also are correct. We do have the decal for the front end of the wing when it's in the up position. We also do have a few decals for the landing gear as well. I'm not seeing a decal for the instrument panel though. Alright, so up next we have our first sprue, and this is our ordnance sprue. We get 2 of these for our air to ground munitions right here. We do have like the AGM-12 bullpup right here, and then the I can't remember what this GPU is, but again, very large missiles. And then we have the Shrike right here, and again, some nice detail on those. When you get those painted and the decals, they will look nice. The fins are nice and thin, they're not too thick. Well, now that I say that, this one is blocked off, so you will need to kind of chamfer that off to make sure that you have those knife edge finishes on your fins. Alright, so moving on, we have what seems to be some of our fuselage or our external details with our slats right here, and then a couple of the lumps and bumps for the tail section right in here, and then our horizontal stabilizers / elevators. They do look very nice. They're nice in one piece, so you won't have to glue them together. There is a mold seam going down the middle of the inside of it, so take care of that with the quick scrape of the hobby knife, and that issue will be taken care of. But the rivet detail and the panel line detail on here does look very nice on the stabilizers right here, and also on your slats as well. Those also do look very nice. Flip it over to the other side. Really not going to be able to see any of this stuff right here on this side, and then your stabilizers right here also look very nice on the underside. So again, very nice detail all around on this kit. Alright, and then up next we have what looks to be our outer wings right here. Again, very nice rivet detail and panel line detail, even though this panel line does seem a little bit soft, but it should be okay. And then same thing on the other side, and then the upper side, I believe this might be the upper, yep, very nice rivet detail going all the way through there on all of those. And then we have our landing gear bays right here, and then our flaps. Again, you get this webbing right here, and this is from where the plastic comes together and cools at different speeds. You won't be able to see that when you get it all painted on, so don't worry about that webbing. And then you have some nice panel lines on these pylons right here. For me personally, I know I won't be using these. I'll probably be using these though, because they go onto the side of the fuselage. But again, all around nice detail. Flip it over to the other side. This is the only part that you're actually going to be able to see. And again, very nice rivet detail and panel lines throughout that piece. Alright, and then up next we have our wings, and the wing detail, again, panel lines, rivets. We even have some raised frame detail right through here. Again, very nice on that. And then on the underside we do have some detail for the raised wing effect on there. So a little bit of detail, just a little bit of cabling. You might want to go in and add some more, or I think there might be some photo etch sets or some aftermarket resin sets for that if you really want to get into that. But for the rest of everything with our flaps, 2 pieces on that. Not much detail, just a few panel lines going on there. Our landing gear doors, we flip it over to the other side. No ejector pin marks on the main landing gear doors on the interior, so that's nice. And then we go over to our gun bay hatches, and again, no ejection pin marks on those as well. So very nice attention to detail on locating the ejector pin marks, so they're not in anywhere that you're going to be able to see. All these ejector pin marks are all in places like the inside of these flaps or the inside of the wings. So very nice on the attention to detail on the engineering of the molds for this kit. Alright, so up next we have a bunch of little details on this sprue right here. Our guns, again, the barrels are not drilled out, so definitely get a micro drill to at least put a little bit of a puncture in there to give that effect. And then our ejection seat handle does look nice. The ram air, very nice detail on that. How much of it you're going to be able to see when it's all painted, but we'll have to see about that. And then we have some tubing to go on right there. Now we get to the wheels. Alright, so the wheels. Some decent hub detail right there, as you can see, but there's no tread detail on the edge of the wheels or on the top of the wheels. So definitely going to need to look into whether these were originally bald wheels, or also seeing if there's some aftermarket accessories out there for that. But we have all that. The gun detail looks okay. You're not going to see that side because it's going to be tucked up, but again, we'll have to see. It might be okay. Alright, so moving on, we have another sprue. We have our gun bays right here and some doors. And how I spoke earlier about ejector pin marks and having nice engineering to make sure the ejector pin marks were in places that weren't seen, I obviously spoke too early, because we have massive ejector pin marks on the inside of these gun bays right here that you will be able to see on that if you leave them open. And then also there's a plethora of ejector pin marks on this piece right here, which looks to be like a gear door or another door for the gun bays. But again, this sprue is just absolutely littered with ejector pin marks, just all over the place. Like even on this hatch right here, you have a few ejector pin marks. On this one, I'm not sure on how much of that you're going to be able to see, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 6 ejector pin marks on this one little piece right here. That's insane. So moving on to our wing fold apparatus. Again, that looks pretty nice. We do have some cabling and some actuator detail in there, so that will detail up pretty nice. And then our refueling probe, again, pretty nice one piece. We just have that mold seam going down the middle of it. And then moving on to the other gun bay. I think this is the gun bay. Should be, but again, just riddled with ejector pin marks right there. And then we have a couple ejector pin marks on our main landing gear. It is nice and one piece, so all you have is the one little mold seam that gets wiped out real quick with the with a hobby knife. But we do have a couple of ejector pin marks, like right here and then right here and here on those. And then on our AIM-9s, again, we have some other ejector pin marks, right? I mean, in key areas right there on the AIM-9s, which is, I typically don't use kit ordnance anyways, but still, that is rather unsat. And I don't know what these bumps are supposed to be on the AIM-9s either, on the fins of the A9s. We flip it over to the other side. Alright, this side is nice and clear on the ejector pin mark, so we don't have to worry about any of the parts over here. But again, on the other side, you have a lot of areas that you are going to be able to see, especially with the sidewinders, because that's a predominant thing on this aircraft, how they stick out from the side of the fuselage. But everything else on this side looks good. The other side looks like crap. So you'll have to make your decision on what you're going to leave open. If the gun bays are going to look like that, I'm probably going to close up the gun bays. That's just me right there. But again, and the sidewinders, I'm going to use some Edward or ResKit sidewinders for this kit. Or use the rockets, because the rockets actually don't look bad at all. And you get those glued together and then these rocket heads in, I think that's going to look really nice. Alright, up next we have some more little clear parts right here, some navigation lights and such. Not much to these clear parts, but they do look nice and clear even through the bag. Alright, up next we have some engine detail right here. Again, some nice detail. The burner can on here. Alright, so that looks, my opinion, that looks horrible. The detail on that, just, we can get a lot better these days for the burner can. The rest of it, for your engine detail, you're really not going to be able to see any of it. So I'm not really worried about that, but that burner can is something that is definitely going to be seen. And yeah, so definitely going to be getting some aftermarket on the burner can, because that is just awful. Alright, so up next we have more engine details for our sprue. This is going to be one of the sections of the engine. We have some nice tubing and wiring for the engine right here, as you can see. Just moving along, and again, this part of the burner can just looks like garbage in my opinion. Just definitely going to be getting an aftermarket exhaust for this kit, because that just does not stand up to my standard, at least. Then we got the inside. Not sure about the ejector pin marks on how much of that you're going to be able to see, and the intake fan right here. With how far back this is, again, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it. It is a very large intake, so you might be able to see that, but the fan detail looks okay on that. A little bit shallow on the fan detail. Alright, so up next we have some more exterior details right here. We have our ventral fins right here, and then our speed brakes moving on, and then we flip it over to the other side. Alright, so these look good. Panel lines, no other detail on that. We have these gear doors, and again we have massive ejector pin marks on all of these gear doors right here. I believe these are our nose gear doors right there. So again, massive ejector pin marks on there. Then on our speed brake, we also have some ejector pin marks right there. But with those should be relatively easy to take care of, and they are on a raised piece of detail, so you shouldn't have to worry about losing much detail. But for the main landing or the nose landing gear doors, you do have, like, this one is surrounded by rivets right here, as you can kind of see. And then this one again is surrounded by rivets, and even the rivets seem very shallow. So you hit that up with a sanding stick, you're going to lose that detail. So definitely want to look into using some perfect putty or Vallejo putty to get that done. With this piece, you have a couple ejector pin marks, but pretty sure you're not going to be able to see that part of the piece. Alright, so we're on our last sprue, and it is a very, very large sprue. I'm going to zoom out. This has both of our fuselage halves, and again, the detail on the fuselage does look very, very nice. The rivet detail back here on that, and then throughout the fuselage, does look very nice on this kit. And then on the other side also, again, I'm hoping that the camera will pick up that detail on there, as you can see. Just moving right through that. And then on the vertical stabilizers, the rudder is molded in, so that won't be positionable. And then moving on to all the other pieces, like I think this might be our landing gear well. We do have a good amount of detail on that right there, as you can see, for both of them. And then our speed brake area, again, some nice detail on the inside of that. That will weather up really, really nice when it's all done. We got our intake. We're going to see how the inside of the intake looks here in just one second. But the nose gear well for the sealing of it looks okay. You're really not going to be able to see much of it. And then the sidewalls for the nose landing gear does actually look very nice. Now moving on to the other parts, we do have some side panels for the cockpit right here. They do look rather generic in my opinion, with just a couple of raised bumps for some switches and knobs. So I definitely think I am going to look into seeing if there's some 3D printed decals available for this kit right here. Otherwise I might go in with some any switches and kind of liven that up a little bit. But just moving along, the instrument panel, again, basic detail. There's no decals in this kit for the instrument panel, so painting up all of that excuse me, painting that all up, I mean, it could look nice when it's all done, but again, I'm thinking I'm going to go with the 3D printed decals for that. And then everything else on here, the cockpit, you do have a little bit of detail on this back piece right here, but everything else, no detail. You just have the two side pieces you're going to put on, and then the ejection seat's going to go in there, and that will be the extent of your cockpit. So moving on to the other side. Alright, so the intakes. Intakes are the one area and then this speed brake area right here. So the speed brake area does look very nice. There's no ejector pin marks. You do have some cabling detail in there, or tubing detail in there, so that will be nice. And then we move over to the intakes, and the intakes do have a good amount of ejector pin marks going through there, if you can see all that on that one. And then it's the same thing on the other one. And with how large these intakes are, you will definitely be able to see these if you look inside. So definitely going to want to take care of all that, and you're going to also have to deal with the side seam lines as well. And then the inside of the ram air turbine right here actually does look very nice, and will weather up and paint up very nice on that. So that detail looks very nice. And then for the inside of the cockpit, or inside of the fuselage, you do need to paint all the way back to here, because you will be able to see a little bit. You probably won't see past this piece right here, but there are ejector pin marks, even ejector pin marks right on here on the very tip of the area that you will be able to see, instead of putting them on the other side of this wall. That's going to block off all that. It just, okay, this must be a older Trumpeter kit, because this is not up to Trumpeter's newer standards. Alright, so that does it for the 132nd F-8J Crusader from Trumpeter. And the kit, the exterior detail looks okay. It looks like if you paint it and weather it and do all the work to it, it will look pretty nice. Maybe with a couple extra add-ons like the exhaust, the wheels, and that type of stuff. The interior detail, like the cockpit, is going to take a little bit of work to liven up, to get up to at least my standard here at Callsign Charlie Models. So that's going to take a little work. And then also the area underneath the wing, when the wing is raised, it looks okay. Could use a little bit of a sprucing up, but as of right now it looks okay. I'm not going to say it looks great or exceptional, because it doesn't. What does look great is the wing fold areas. Those actually, the mechanisms for the wing fold, that actually looked pretty good. But other than that, everything else on the kit looked okay. They started off doing really good on the ejector pin placement. Then afterwards they just said screw it, and they just, a few of the sprues, there's probably over 100 ejector pin marks on the plastic parts, and probably half of those are in areas that you're going to be able to see. So that's one major thing that we're going to definitely have to take care of on this kit, is all the ejector pin marks. But other than that, that's all I have for this kit. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that if you're on the fence about getting this kit, I hope it helped you sway you either way. And let me know down in the comments if you decided to get this kit, if you have this kit, or if you've built this kit. And also, if you haven't yet, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell button for notifications of future videos from me. But until next time, have a great day, stay frosty, and happy modeling.